sit down and scratch a bit below just the surface of how things appear.
Wonderful. I'm definitely looking forward to taking a look at that when it's going to be out. And I don't know if you know Jim personally in such a way. Maybe you can also actually approach him and ask if he would be interested in coming on the program with us here. We'd love to talk with him more about it, because it seems to be a very interesting project that he's doing.
Yes, I think he would be. I think he would be interested in that, and I can definitely pass that on.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
And of course, you mentioned the store, the double K. I mean, that's something that I like to talk with you about. You've been kind of going into, I guess this has spawned from the whole MM thing that were going on a while back, but this has kind of moved on, and you've been looking at things that is related to HH and also KK.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, to me, the sort of starting point, I remember MM, but I kind of forgot about it, and I got into I read Ralph Ellis's book K2 Quest of the Gods, and he talks in the book about how he believes, after researching the Great Pyramid at Giza, that it's a map, that it decodes as a map that points towards the Himalayan mountain K2, which is the second highest mountain on Earth. And it's very interesting. The book talks about how, K2 is pyramidal, which you can check up on Wikipedia. It's true. It has distinctive 4 sides. Actually, it has 8 sides. It's actually octagonal, sort of a distinctive octagonal shape to this mountain. And it has like a glacier that is similar and in the same position to the causeway at Giza. And, he looks at those little, what do they call them? They come out of the king and queen's chamber, these lines that go all the way through the pyramids, and some people were calling them ventilation shafts.
Right.
People said they align to Orion, and all these interesting things about them. But he's taken those as geodetic markers, and somehow the math is a bit beyond me, but I'm more interested in the synchronicities about it. But he shows how those are, coordinates. You plot those on a map, and their coordinates. And it makes sense, because the Great Pyramid has got pi encoded into it, and it's a direct ratio of the size of the Earth, and all these interesting connections. So he thinks it's a map, and it points directly towards the mountain K2. And, I thought that was an interesting idea. I certainly couldn't say if it's true or not, but the synchronicities are fascinating, because I thought I would investigate it synchromistically. And so I had a look at the 2 movies that I could find that Hollywood has made about K2 and another thing that was fascinating is that Aleister Crowley, and this isn't mentioned in K2 Quest of the Gods, Aleister Crowley was the first person to attempt to climb K2, which is an immediate red flag. That's just like baffling. Like, how does one guy say that the Great Pyramid is a map that points towards K2, and then Aleister Crowley is the first person to try and climb K2. That's immediately like an interesting synchronicity of note. And a year later, after Crowley climbed K2, he was meditating in the Great Pyramid, and then soon after that, he got the Book of the Law through his wife. Channeled that book, which is spawned Thelema and influenced the occult world no end. So those synchronicities are just kind of mind blowing. And then if you look into Vertical Limit, I noticed an interesting pattern, and it sort of centers around this one girl, this sort of strange actress, which I'm sure most people have never heard of, but her name is Robin Tunney, and I've just become fascinated by her because her movies are just so incredibly connected to all the synchronicities I research. And she climbs K2 in the film Vertical Limit, and the most dramatic thing that you notice is that in The Craft, she can be seen with Aleister Crowley books, or at least books that say magic, with the distinctive Crowley MAGICK way of writing magic in frame, with her in frame. And I just thought, that's insane. Like, how is a girl climbing K2 in one movie, and in another movie she's with Aleister Crowley inspired books?
Right. It
just seems like such a dramatic coincidence. And then I started watching End of Days. Let's look at some other Tunney movies, I thought. And then she's the millennium. The End of Days is about the 1999 millennium, and It's got the World Trade Center is in that film, featured in all these scenes with Arnold Schwarzenegger. You can see the World Trade Center in shot, and it's the 2K millennium. Right?
Right.
That's how we were shorting down. People were going Y2K or 2K for 2000. And many scenes have Rob and Tunney passing right by these banners that say 2K, and that's just K2 flipped.
Right.
So there's these interesting synchronicities. So I just kept looking closer and closer, and then crazy things started coming up, like the paparazzi movie that she's in. Oh, no, actually, I mean the Zodiac movie that she's in, which is about the Zodiac killer.
Right.
It's an older one. It wasn't the newer one with Jake Gyllenhaal. It was an older Zodiac film where the cover has all the elements that you would see in the Book of the Law on that sort of infamous, mysterious grid page that's in there, that has this grid that Crowley drew over one of the pages with a target symbol.
The cipher page?
The cipher page, that's right.
Yeah.
So this poster just happens to have a grid on it, a target symbol on it, and a diagonal line. And, these things just started blowing my mind. And the more I looked into Robin Tunney's movies, I found so many where the target, diagonal line pointing right at her head, all over her, all around her. It's just very interesting line of reasoning. And so the K2 thing has really become a pivotal synchronicity. And, MM, which people like Goro Adachi and Ben Farrell have mentioned, the MM, that's Roman numerals for 2000, and 2K is also 2000. So there's a connection between MM, and there's many, interesting MMs, Marilyn Monroe, Marilyn Manson, Eminem the rapper, or Mary Magdalene, etc., which seem connectable to K2. And then more recently, I've been going into this sort of mind-blowing little fact, is that K is the 11th letter of the alphabet, right? And the solstice on 2012, this date that's everybody has become really fascinated with, the Mayan calendar's end date is on the solstice in 21 December 2012. And the exact timing is 11/11, which is K2, because, 11th letter of the alphabet is K. So you even have the 2012 phenomena or theme smack interacting with K2, the mountain that Crowley climbs and the pyramid map that Ralph Ellis talks about. So this whole thing is really fascinating to me.
Wow, that's really interesting, and it feels like it's a bit in a synchronistic way. It's about really pointing out that this is the switch of the new millennium, because as we all know, this is maybe not something that happens bam smack on 1 second point in time, as it were. It's more like a transition period over a few years, and if we think of a millennium, 12 or 13 or even 15 years isn't that long, so in a way it's more like we have this overgoing period from 1999 up to 2012, 13, 14, something like that. And
that's right.
It can be a resonator, if you will, of that, incorporated in all these themes that you've been talking about, that this is the switching over to something new, right?
That's right. It's this consciousness phase that I feel we're going through as a species. We seem to be evolving, and I feel it's very simply we are becoming aware that we are aware, and that consciousness that animates and is that we all share, this pool that we all come from, the consciousness itself, the primordial unmanifested consciousness before it takes form. Consciousness, unmanifested consciousness is becoming aware of itself through us. And we can, through synchronicity, we're starting to see all these patterns, because, we are these patterns. We are this consciousness that's all one. And that's the synchronicities are showing that everything is connected and that there are patterns in it. Like, it's a new way of thinking that's beyond thought, because thought was so limited and it didn't stop there. Evolution hasn't stopped there. So synchronicity is sort of a new language that we are evolving that's pointing towards beyond the limitation of thought, because we can now see, there's a connection here and there's a connection here. And I use media because we all know those things. That's a common we're all familiar with movies and actors and stars. So, and I mean, there's something profound as well about putting on a movie and drama. It's sort of a magical ritual in a way as well. It's a reenactment, and there's a lot of magic involved in that as well, I feel. But I feel like consciousness is waking up, and synchronicity is part of that realization. And I mean, none of this would be possible without synchronicity. It's exactly what we're talking about, right? It's 2K embedded in all these facets of this awakening process. And there's other facets. 2K is just one of them. It's just a very vivid and interesting one. And as you're saying, it seems to be a period, a phase. It's not like one moment, but I feel like 9/11 is key to that. It's this dramatic impact that happened, that on everybody's consciousness, and it seems to be a symbol for this awakening process, or part of what kickstarted it, inseparable from it. And I've been thinking of it as I've been reading John Major Jenkins' Galactic Alignment book, and it's very interesting. He talks about there being an axis. The 2012 alignment draws an axis in the skies, and it's from our vantage here on Earth. It would be galactic center is at Sagittarius and Gemini, and then the line would be traced from galactic center through the Earth, and the end of the axis would be on the other end of the zodiac, which is Taurus and Gemini, and the other end is Sagittarius, Scorpio. So you have this axis being drawn by the galactic alignment in 2012, and in a way you can think of the Gemini on the one end, the start of this axis, the bottom of this axis, as the World Trade Center disaster, because you have the Twin Towers, right? The very dramatic twin symbolism there. And also the 11/11 embedded in that, because you have this September 11th event with this giant 11 building coming down. So you got the 11/11 there, and this twin energy. Yeah. And then at the other end of the axis, you have galactic alignment in 2012. So it's this whole phase that seems to be marked out in the events that are happening around us, and you can sort of read the symbolism by just comparing them to things that resonate each other.
That is interesting. So it's like, and we also have 2001. That's the first year leading up to 2012. That's potentially that we're going through the 12 steps of the zodiac right there. Who knows?
Yes.
Like one year is symbolizing one of the zodiac signs. I don't know if that's pretty interesting. One might actually be able to. Sorry to interrupt. Go ahead, Jake.
No, that's an interesting thought. The 12 zodiac signs and the 12 years. It's interesting. Yeah, very interesting.
One might be able to, go back and actually look at the, what is prominent with the years that we have been going through, and see if there's a kind of a homogeneous, symbol that has to do with that year, and maybe we can pick up something from that. That's pretty interesting.
And then there, of course, is the Aquarius thing. We're moving into the age of Aquarius at the same point with this galactic alignment, as if these things are in training with each other. Sort of this giant processional year that's coming to a close around this time, and then the galactic alignment as well, and Aquarius with the water. I've been thinking about that, the symbol of Aquarius, the sort of wavy lines or those energy lines. You can think of them as lightning or energy or water. Yeah. And it seems to be that symbolism is also very strongly encoded in the media. The water, the idea of flooding and. Yeah. So many. I was just recently watching one of Steve Wilner's videos, and he showed this clip from the movie Deep Impact, where Manhattan is just being flooded by this titanic wave, and the World Trade Center is just getting swallowed by this water. And I'm like, that's Aquarius. That's the water door, the Stargate, correlating with the 9/11 event. It's very interesting.
Yeah, it is definitely, and exactly, it's a kind of a sign of the. Well, in that sense, the initiation into a new era or a new time or what have you. And it's true that you mentioned. We can just look at the what was it called? The Superstorm? No, that's the book actually. The Day After Tomorrow, right? Same thing there.